What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Invisigal. I want to talk about what makes her such an incredible character, and maybe even slightly a controversial one. I actually missed out on a lot of the controversy of the locker room scene right away when it happened, but over the last couple days, my Twitter feed, for whatever reason, has been flooded with a lot of people pretty mad at that scene. So I want to talk about her. Look, ultimately, I picked her in my decisions, in this game, and I think she's legendary. I think, I've talked about this before. You look at the top three characters of this game, Invisigal, Robert, and Blonde Blazer, and there's a lot to them. And I think Invisigal specifically, we talked about Blonde Blazer a couple days ago. She's more kind of simple, and that's not a bad thing, right? She's just good. She has an amazing heart. It's easy to fall for that, and in a good way, by the way. I'm not saying like looking down on it. She's somebody that can be a friend. She can be a love interest. She's just good. And sometimes you don't have characters that are like that are almost as simple as a character as Blonde Blazer. You kind of have the exact opposite, with Invisigal, this person that is trying to do good. And that's really where I want to focus on this video, okay? Because, look, the looks are there. She's a beautiful character, just like Blonde Blazer. This is the character that I picked, again, in my playthrough. And Laura Bailey does, oh my dear God, we talked about Erin Yvette being a legend, but Laura Bailey is also a legend. And, I really think to all of her characters that she's done so many. Fiona in Tales from the Borderlands is honestly, I think, my favorite character she's ever done. And Invisigal has a little bit of that. She's got the mischief. She's got the fun factor. She's got, this is a character that's not afraid to like get right up in your face and tell you how she feels. At the same time, though, right? She can hide stuff from you. And at the same time, she doesn't feel quite comfortable in her skin and in what she's doing, at any given time. And I think that really, I think, speaks to her character. And I think that's also what makes her probably the most complex character of this game, and to me, my favorite. If I were to rank these characters, I actually would put Invisigal at number one. Now, they do some interesting stuff, obviously, with Shroud at the very, very end. We've talked about it before in a couple videos. They throw one final wrench at us that really, I think, F's with her character. And, of course, what I'm talking about is when he pulls the 180 and he says that basically she was working for him the entire time, that she was planted. Now, the planting of the bomb thing was kind of obvious, and I think a lot of people online, it got so obvious that people, including myself, kind of gravitated to the Blonde Blazer theory just to make it not so obvious, that Invisigal was the one who did it. So, that one, it did not catch me off guard, okay? And I honestly think it fit her character. Somebody that really didn't want to do that. She did it for certain reasons. Once that was done, she left. She joined the Z team. And, this is a character that, again, her personality is just so big. You think about some of the first times you meet her. She's just fun, but she also comes across quite heavy. She's like spying on you in the briefing room, right, when she's invisible. She breaks rank, you can kind of say, right? And her first kind of fight sequence. And, there's some, to me, it was a little tense in that sequence because it's like, all right, you don't really know where the game's going at that point. How protective of her is the game going to be, right? Like, does it let you take her out in the first couple episodes? You really don't know that when you're first jumping in. So that was it was tense, but it was also, a demonstration of she's capable. In terms of power, she's capable. You understand how her powers work. And you do get a glimpse. Look, she goes out of her way to do something good. In a way, in her own twisted way, right? And she does that a couple times. I think about also when she is, sitting in the park, and you kind of get both sides of her character, right? She, in terms of what she does to those teenagers, probably not right, not what a hero would do. And so, comes across there. And also she quit on you. You think about the dispatching gameplay part right before that, she doesn't even want to do it, because she knows she's so far behind. Why even bother? But, when given the opportunity, she says, all right, you know what, let's do it. And to me, that was a huge turning point. That really, and, one of her most important scenes, I'd probably argue, is her looking at the scoreboard and her having a sense of pride in literally not being last. Now, I believe, if I remember the scene, she's second last, and I love that. Honestly, I think that's one of her most important scenes, and it's one of my favorite scenes with her as a character because that's her heart. She knows that just the smallest glimpse of like, okay, I can do it, right? And it's like that I freaking love. And I would also say, okay, jumping far ahead, that's one of my favorite scenes. The other scene, even though it's very controversial, depending on which way it plays out with your love interest, is the locker room scene, okay? I love the locker room scene because, well, number one, the whole kissing thing while invisible, to me, I was going for her. So it's like, I didn't want her to leave. That's how I saw it. Now, I didn't know any of the other ways that can play out, including, like, if you're going for Blonde Blazer, and if you, basically, I believe she kisses you no matter what. I think I saw some people say she doesn't kiss you if you do certain things, but it's actually pretty hard to get her to not kiss you in that circumstance. But okay, I want to rewind a little bit before the kiss, though, because I don't even think that's not the most important part. The most important part to me is what she wants people to view her as. Now, I said this in my review, and I want to bring it up here because it's so central to her character. If you're going for her, and if you're not taking the approach of really kicking her out, she really only tells you that she wants you to view her, or she wants others to view her, as he sees Blonde Blazer. And in that moment, I thought live, I'm playing the game, I'm recording it, all this stuff. I thought, okay, I get it. That's her entire character right there. It's not a romance. It's not a romance. And now I've seen people, saying that now, but it's like, okay, it's important, I think, that you recognize that right away. It's not a romance where it's like, well, I want you to look at me, in love, in the same way you look as Blonde Blazer. Now, the thing is, I was going for her, so I didn't read it like that because it's like, well, no, duh. I obviously do look at you, as the love interest, not as Blonde Blazer. What she's talking about is that respect, the ability to do good, looking at her as a hero. That's what she wants. Now, upon looking it up, if you're more forceful, I don't know if it matters if you pick Blonde Blazer or not, but if you I think if you kick her out, that was the one I saw somebody play through it, and if you literally say, no, we're done, okay, if you go down that route, after she admits to the bomb, and you have a choice. I actually chose to kind of leave it and say, well, I don't know, you got to give me some time. That's the one that I chose, and everything still happens, but if you choose and you say, no, we're done, she's more direct. She actually doesn't hide it as much as she does with the first thing I just said. In that one, she literally does say she wants people to look at her with the ability that she can do good, just with the belief, that it's possible that she can do good. And she struggles with that because and this is what I love about her character is it's a little bit of her. In fact, it's a lot of her. She's got, I see people lumping her in with Chloe Price of Life is Strange in negative ways. I kind of look at it as I actually look at it as a positive because I really like Chloe. These are characters that are flawed and that struggle with apologies and struggle with really coming out and saying, okay, it's me, I'm the problem, right? But these are characters that know it, and these are characters that they are responsible for a good portion of their actions, but they have that soul and that heart in them. And I think as audiences and as players, we are gravitated, toward, at least me, at least I am. I like that complex kind of a mess of a character that, honestly, a lot of these things is her fault. She could kind of just be more in line. She could take orders better. And that was a big part of the beginning, right? The first kind of 2, 3, 4 episodes. And even Robert was kind of, pushing that on the entire team. Just listen to me. When I send you on dispatching things, do what I tell you because this is the kind of the thing. But what they all have to realize is they're all unique. And sometimes they're not going to gel. And sometimes things aren't going to work out perfectly. And that's kind of what's special about them. And that's the key right there, right? She has the ability to do good. She has the ability to be a good person. And you could see even a flash of that when you go on the date with her, right? When you go to the movie theater, you see, not necessarily oh, now all of a sudden she's a good person, but you see she's not even playing it hard to get because she's pretty open with Robert that she's literally testing things out, of course, after her dream, which what a dream that was, right? In the beginning of episode 4. But I also like that, it's that's her as a person. She's not afraid to be all right, I know what I want. It's very clear she wants Robert, and she's got her own ways of doing things. I guess this is where it kind of goes into the Shroud, double crossing, all that stuff. Look, I think for most of the game, in her own way, she was trying to protect others. She was trying to protect Robert in particular, probably selfishly protecting Robert over anybody else, which I also kind of like that about her character. You think about, of course, what got Chase in trouble, right, at the end of episode 6, I believe, and it was probably a wrong call, but it is what it is. Why did she do it? I think she did it from a good place. It's just the actions themselves were quite messy, right? Then you get to, okay, if she really was working for Shroud, or at least he thought she was, what was she doing? What about the astral thing, right? What about trying to steal Mecha Man? Or at least that's how Roy looked at it. Now, I don't look at it like that, right? I believe her, and I tried to do that in episodes 7 and 8. I didn't cut her. I wanted to trust her, and I untied her. All that stuff. I didn't know about, okay, if you push her away, she's going to be an anti-hero. Obviously, she's going to do to Shroud what she's going to do to him. I didn't know that. I just was like, all right, I'm going to trust her heart, because I think that's, that kind of encapsulates her character. I'm going to trust her heart, and although how we get to places are messy, and they're probably not, in line with how other people would do it, it's her. That's how she is, and that the outcome is going to be rooted in something good. And so, you think about the Mecha Man stuff. I mean, if you want to look at it from the angle, and which is kind of how I do it, in her mind, she was just protecting Robert. And she is right that if she gave him the astral thing, right, he would have gone to that bar, and then he would have gotten it taken from him. And it really, in that way, it would have been game over. And you can tell from Shroud, even though the mask is on, right? You can't see, his facial expressions in that moment. He is caught off guard. He was duped. Robert was duped. I guess that was probably the first indication he did not expect that. And I think that actually plays later and later on in, he has this view of Invisigal, and clearly, his weakness, Shroud's weakness, is predictability, right? He can only do things based off of the predictability. Invisigal is the least predictable person in the world, in this lore. And so, even if he thinks she's working with him, she can pull a 180, but she can also maybe be working for him. So it's like he really can't tell, at certain points. So, that's how I look at her. And in terms of that final reveal that, she was doing it all along, I really don't know about that. I look at it as she planted the bomb. She was done. She made some kind of deal at some point. Maybe even at one point, yeah, she planted the bomb. She was still working for him, and she joined the ZT. See, I really don't believe that, but I think the game is kind of steering you in that direction. But I think very, very quickly she stopped. I think very quickly she dropped the working for him thing around episode 1, 2, 3. Like almost immediately, I feel she stopped. And then she was fine, and then she kind of reverted back, at least to him, at least to Shroud. She reverted back. But, ultimately, I think she was doing a lot of things, and she was probably doing a lot of things wrong, but she was doing a lot of things to protect Robert. If he gets to Mecha Man so easily, she thinks he's going to die. She thinks Shroud's going to take him out. Or she just thinks Shroud's going to get it faster, and that's not going to be good for anybody. So, again, I think that's what's very special about her character is she is a mess. She makes things very unpredictable, and that's kind of fun, by the way. But, she's doing it because she does care. She just has a very hard way of doing it, of showing it, of expressing it. It's easy to her in some ways, right? Like telling Robert, like, hey, I kind of like you, and I'm going to go for it, and I guess I'm not really going to take no for an answer. I'm just seeing it through. She can express that. Some other things, though, she can't express, right? And also, the entire arc, like looking back, she's always kind of at least visibly, she looks like the jealous one whenever you're kind of going with Blonde Blazer versus her. I actually do think that locker scene that I keep referencing, I actually think that adds more weight to it now where, I think in the moment you look at it as a relationship thing. When you're dancing with Blonde Blazer, you can look in the back, right, and she's watching you versus if you're dancing with Invisigal, Chase is watching you, right? So it's kind of that, it's a big difference. And, in the moment you're thinking, oh, she's jealous. I think she is jealous, in terms of relationship and romance-wise, but I also do think in terms, even the times she's, like, catching you talking to Blonde Blazer and she's just invisible, throughout the game, I do think that angle of, I want you to look at me the way you look at her, I think that's there, too. And only when you hear that, I think, can you go back and say, oh, okay, there's, there's another layer. It's not just romantic jealousy. She can tell the kind of person that Blonde Blazer basically brings out of people, when they're talking to her, that respect and that looking up as a hero type thing. And she doesn't get that. She's never gotten that, right? And that hurts her. So I really think she's a complex character. She's definitely more complex than Blonde Blazer. It doesn't, to me, again, I prefer Invisigal. It doesn't necessarily make her a better or worse character. Like I talked about in the Blonde Blazer video, there's something very special to kind of just having a good heart and having that be like your guiding star. That's really really cool. In Invisigal, I think you need the polar opposite. You know, if you're going to have like the two, well, literally they have the two opposites, but if you're going to have this choice between one or the other, if they're both superheroes, if they're both like a blonde blazer, or they're both like an Invisigal, it's too close. You need like a project, which is what Invisigal is, versus like this established steady person and more predictable versus unpredictable. I mean, that's literally what it kind of all boils down to. But I think she's great. I really like her. Obviously, you know, I played through it. Going for her. So all of the great, like, romantic even scene, I just thought they're awesome, you know, like dancing with her. You know, it's nice to see her happy. And I think that because you know her character, it kind of retroactively helps too, right? Where it's like you see what she's trying to do at the end. You kind of figure it all out, right? And some of it's just her telling you. You also can kind of get it throughout the game. Like, she's trying, but she has bad ways of doing it. Then when you make her happy, I feel like it feels good. At least does that make sense? It feels good to kind of be like, oh, she's smiling. Oh, she's dancing. She's getting what she wants, but she's embracing it, you know, and she's not really able to do that for most of the time. So I really think she's an amazing character, all controversies aside. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.